left behind, touched by clouds flying silent over shadows of long ago. The mysteries of millennium whisper their secrets to the Rupununi sky, leaving locked and chiseled rock the ways of old Rupununi days. Traditions of a more recent vintage have for the past 150 years been taking root here. They are arising out of the dominant economic activity introduced when a Dutchman in 1860 bought some head of cattle in Brazil and crossed over into then British Guyana with them. The Wai-Wai, the Wapishiana and the Makusi, who lived independently on these lowland Rupununi savannas for millennium, became mere employees in the cattle ranching business that came to dominate the area, transforming many into vaqueros, a vital need for sustaining the ranches, supplying beef to the city hundreds of miles away by trail. As if having an instinctual understanding of the characteristics of the animals in their charge, they are adept at managing the risks of injury from the dangers of their occupation, to the extent that these dangers have now become a sport in which contestants vie with each other, attracting bigger and bigger crowds to the Rupununi for rodeo at Easter time. Are these descendants of the Makushi, the Wapishiana and the Wai-Wai, who were made into vaqueros, now to be transformed into tourist attractions? And for whose benefit? The economic interests of the indigenous workforce were not the concern of the early European settlers, nor their descendants, who stayed on in the area, developing cattle ranching into a viable business prospect. By the 1960s, after nearly a century of grappling with transforming a wilderness frontier, they felt themselves poised finally on the brink of prosperity. A prosperity that was afforded by the exploitation of a resident workforce and by an inefficient use of wide-ranging expanses of what at the time were crown lands. Fearful of the black government of the newly independent state and the possibility of Afro-Guyanese coming in to help develop the region, these relative newcomers to the area, anxious about the non-renewal of their leases and reeling from the defeat in the 1968 national general elections of one of their leaders, conspired to mount an ill-advised rebellion aimed at the secession of more than a quarter of the territory of the country. Despite the advantages on their side and the killing of 6 government workers, their rebellion failed in 6 short days, and they fled across the border. Inadvertently, the events of 1969 brought more social integration to the indigenous people of the region, and their toshaus, their community leaders, were now to pledge their loyalty to the government of Guyana in exchange for promises of development projects in their communities. More than 40 years later, residents of this region remain marginalized by persisting wilderness frontier conditions and traditions lost.